This is a rebuilt rear brake, and I had a lot of problems with this. What I did was, my intention was to replace this lever, brake lever, with a new painted one that had a fancy paint job. So I took this whole, the rear brake mechanism, the pegs and the brake lever off, only to find out that the rear brake lever that I'd purchased was from a wrecked bike, and it was bent. So I put the original back in and left it the way it was. I also took out the master cylinders. I have three original 1992 90 to 92 rear brake master cylinders. 3 of them. I have steel lines. I have brand new copper washers, and my old brake pads were almost worn down, so I put new EBCs on it, and I did sand the disc down a little just to give it a good contact friction plate. This was about the same time that I got the new chain and new sprocket kits, and I also redid my my suspension dog and the whole rear suspension. It's got kind of a fancy paint job on it, but the Hurricane Irma came through here, missed the area completely. I mean, everybody got hit by the hurricane except for me. But essentially, none of my, I took it out, took a brush, plunged it with a brush, only to find out that I did something. I must have taken some of the metal off the wall, or I did something to the internal of this piston. All of them are no longer working. None of them are holding pressure. I tried buying a K&L rebuild kit, and I also bought a kind of one of those all balls one with only the seals. None of them worked. And I tested the rear calipers. I had 3 of these. I tested all 3 rear calipers, and the seals, I had just rebuilt them. I knew one of them was just brand new rebuilt, and it was good. So I bought 2 additional rear seals for it just in case these were bad. But once I pushed the hydraulic clutch, I used a hydraulic clutch on my, I have a spare hydraulic clutch, and I put a maximum amount of pressure on these pistons and determined that the seals on it were holding the maximum amount of pressure possible. Now, what I did instead was buy a 2001 rear brake master cylinder off a used bike, and this thing, it took me less than 30 seconds to get this primed and working. So the only thing is that you need to have, if you can see it back there, the VFR 800, you need those little butterfly clips or a bolt. They're M6s. They look identical in the front, but I have the, you need to buy separate bolts. I have titanium ones with the stainless steel wing nuts on it, and you just thread lock it so it doesn't come out, and it's holding a lot of pressure, and it just primed in one pump. This thing primed. Now, to do this, here's what you do. This is the easiest way to prime your rear brake and to get it working. The trick or the magic is your sriracha bottle, and that's sriracha. This is a used sriracha bottle, okay? And if you notice, that tip is very narrow. It's narrow because it allows you to put the tip inside the chamber where the pistons are. So you want to put the sriracha bottle inside here and fill it up. And you want to loosen the bleeder valve. Once you got that done, what you want to do is put your 6mm hose, take your 6mm hose Put your 6mm hose over the bleeder like that. That is a 6mm hose. You want to put it over the bleeder, hang it so that it's hung like that. Tighten this up, make sure there is no leaks here. When I first put it on, the copper crush washer was leaking, so I switched it over to an aluminum. It seems like the aluminum ones are much more reliable than the copper one. This one had welded itself on the brake caliper, so I just used it still. But it's working fine, it's not leaking. If it's leaking, I will put an aluminum washer in there instead of the copper. The copper does not seem like they can be reused, and they don't seem as if they are very reliable. That said, once you have no leaks in your hydraulic line, these are steel lines, and I did test my hydraulic line to see if there was a hole or something wrong, a clog or something. There was nothing wrong with it. It turned out to be my old pistons, the original pistons that came with the bike. The K&L rebuild kit with the new pistons and new seals don't even work. I spent a lot of money just trying to get it to work, and it doesn't work. So I'll pull the piston out of it and reuse it. But basically, once you have that done, you want to fill up your reservoir, make sure everything is. Now I rebuilt this hose. I put shrink wrap. I put shrink wrap on here just in case there was a leak. Up where I put shrink wrap 3 inches down in case there was a leak due to this clip. Did the same for this one. Shrink wrapped it 3 inches just in case there was a leak in a hole, causing pressure to. There was no leaking, but just to make sure, I wanted to do that, and that also gave it a tighter clip on these little reservoirs. The reservoirs are tight on both ends. So once I did that, cotter pin, I just used a galvanized, thick, heavy, strong wire and bent it like an S shape. I didn't use a cotter pin, I just used a very heavy duty wire. Then filled the reservoir. Of course it filled up. Gave it 1 pump, loosened the bleeder valve. So you loosen the bleeder valve, and as a matter of fact, I can do it right now and show you. Give you an example of what I'm talking about, because I got a little leak here. Yeah, I got liquid in this. I got liquid in the damn thing. I don't want to get it all over. Okay. So basically, your bleeder valve is on there. I'm going to release the tension on there. Okay, I've released the tension on there. Now, when you push your brake lever, this is what's going to happen. On your first pump, you're going to see that thing rise like that. See how it's rising? Now, after you fill this up, you fill the piston up with your sriracha bottle, DOT4 or 3. I use 3 and 4. This one's just DOT4. Fill it up all the way. Then you go ahead and tighten these. Loosen that, put a hose on it. Fill up your reservoir. Your first pump, you're going to see all air. Second pump, it's going to be all air. Third pump, you'll see the liquid come out like that and a bunch of bubbles. Once you see the bubbles, it starts to siphon, and the siphoning will push the liquid probably out to here. At that point, you want to go ahead and close it. Okay? That means everything is filled up and all the air is out of it. You don't even need to bleed it anymore. Okay? So once it's like that, you go ahead and close it up. And it took me 2 pumps, maybe 1 pump, and it just pressurized, and it's pressurized right now. And that was the fastest, easiest method that I know to start your pressurization on your the hydraulics. Again, I purchased 2 rebuild kits for the original ones. They did not work. They were working perfectly before I took it off. I took a little brush for test tubes and sent it through there to clean it, and stuck a flashlight down there so it was crystal clean, and saw the 2 holes for the reservoir. Put it back in, and it just took a crap on me. Now it's back working again, and I've got the EBC brake pads in there, brand new. But I tell you what, I went with a VFR 800, which is not 25 years old, but realistically the VFR 800 is only about 10 years old, about 10 years old maybe. So a 10-year-old versus a 25-year-old. I think maybe that after a while these rear master cylinders just take a crap on you. The one I got off eBay for 12 bucks, one of those Chinese sets, it didn't really do anything. It's not powerful enough to drive these pistons. So that basically, now there's no air in there, so because once the air bubbles, once you siphon it out, it just pushes all the air bubbles out. So it's nicely primed. Spins freely until you push the brakes on, and that's that.